Live from the studio of his parents' basement, the Have You Seen It podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Have You Seen It podcast. My name is Mason Knight. Sitting across from me is the one and only Cash Krause. But before we begin, if you guys could please be sure to smash that like button, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification as we drop videos here every single day. So with that said, Cash, what are we reviewing today?
Today, we are reviewing an animated film. Fun little family animated film.
Encanto.
Encanto. It's finally here.
It is here on Disney Plus.
Yeah. No, this is a different kind of animated
Much
film.
different.
A little
And
darker.
let's just get a little more serious.
Yeah.
That was the one joke.
See my voice go down a
Yes,
notch?
yes.
This is my serious voice now. Yes, we're doing a little heavier for an animated film.
Yeah, one of the more heavy.
For sure. Yeah.
Outside of maybe Invincible. I'd say this is pretty heavy.
Right. There has been some definitely heavy anime films for sure. But this is definitely a heavy one. It's a Danish film called Flea. It's been getting a lot of buzz lately because it's been nominated for 3 different categories at the Oscars.
It's pretty impressive.
That's a big fucking deal.
Yes, it is. And the categories that they got nominated for is a big deal.
Yeah, it did. Best International Film,
Yep.
Best Animated Film, and Best Documentary Film.
Yep.
I don't know. That's if you look at the. I guess we can talk about it first.
I think it'll
maybe,
win.
But
yeah, I think it'll definitely win 2 out of 3 of those.
Really?
Least.
I think it will win Best Documentary Film.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to win.
Best animated because of Encanto.
The power of Encanto right now is.
And that's why I said 2 out of 3. I think international it'll probably win.
I don't know if it's going to win Best International. There's a Japanese film called Drive My Car right now that's getting a ton of buzz. And was even when it came out months ago at Cannes or something. Yeah.
We should review that then.
It is.
I like reviewing foreign
They were
films.
showing it at the Hollywood Theater too. I know it's coming to HBO Max on March 1st.
Oh, nice. Okay,
Yeah,
we'll
so we
review
can do
that.
that.
Then.
But
Yeah.
it's getting a lot of buzz.
It's called
right
Drive My Car.
now. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, it is. I think it takes place all in a car. I know.
Great premise.
I'm there. I love cars. But yes, let's get back to this. A Danish animated film. It tells the story of a man named Ahmed and his travels from war-torn Afghanistan, right?
Yes. Yep.
In the 70s and the 80s, and his travels as a refugee to try to get somewhere safe with his entire family. It is a wild tale.
It's a wild tale and a gut-punching story at every turn. And the seriousness of this film, I mean, like, it is not your typical animated film. It's not one for kids either.
Yeah, although you could watch it definitely with younger generation for sure, and they could definitely get something, just a snapshot of what a lot of people go to get to somewhere safe from their country that's dealing with problems that most 98% of the civilization have nothing to do with at all. I mean, absolutely nothing.
Well, and that's something to speak about too, and how well this documentary did on that front is like putting yourself in Ahmed's shoes. And like I kept thinking about that, and like I'm not gonna lie to you, there was one point in the film, we'll get into it later, that I actually like started tearing up because I was just like, I guess the realization of everything surrounding his life. You know, obviously we get into the story, and this is very early on. We find out that he has fantasies about men. He's a boy at this time, but he has fantasies about
yes, he's
Claude
gay.
Van Damme and stuff like that.
Jean-Claude,
he's gay.
yeah. Which I assume turned a lot of men gay.
I could imagine.
Bloodsport, they watched a lot of Bloodsport.
They watched a ton of Bloodsport and a lot of Mexican soap operas.
Yes, which had nothing to do with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
No.
He did not, but a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah, definitely. That's just a whole added layer of problems for all men but it ends, that whole thing ends in the best way possible.
Yes.
Which I did not see coming at all. It was,
And that's where I teared up.
I was
like,
scared
wow.
where they was coming. Yeah, exactly. But man.
Because he had made it so far. And like, and I was tearing up because I'm like, dude.
I'm like, what is about to happen?
Yeah. Bad to us. And then it's even more tragedy on top of that. And I was like, God, I feel terrible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Luckily, it doesn't. It is an amazing story, though. I mean, a story that if Ahmed just came up to you and told you in the street, you'd be like, holy shit, someone should make a movie about that.
Yes.
But the animation is if you want to talk about technical aspects, it is beautifully done. It is awesome, like hand-drawn 2D animation. And it like dips in and out of different styles too, but it is really well done. And it does a really good job of literally painting a picture of how he felt in some of these scenarios. Like when they're down below the boat and it goes like all black or whatever, and it's drawn in a way that makes you feel like you're being sucked into that little tiny hole in the boat or whatever.
Yeah.
Or when the cops come and they're all drawn in black, it's scary. It's horrifying.
Well, those boat scenes too, just to bring that up, is like also it gave you a good feel of like the claustrophobic nature and the fear in the associated of like fear, because they're trapped in here and then they hear the boat engine. I mean, we're kind of jumping all over the place. We should probably start at the beginning of this story because everything is it's a wild story.
It starts out with and it doesn't get too much into politics at all of like Afghanistan or anything like that, which, give or take. And it's because it's not about that. It's a much more personal story. It's not about the country of Afghanistan. It's about this one family and the crazy lengths they go to just for a better future for themselves. So it starts out his Afghanistan. It's one of many times where they're swapping powers. USSR's coming in. They're communists now. America hates that. We're like, we got to get in there and kick their asses.
I never knew that. That's interesting.
You didn't know?
No,
not big fans.
Not fans of commies, huh?
Hated commies so much we're willing to bring Nazis in to fight the commies.
Oh, the Red Scare and Project Paperclip. Yes.
Yep, the domino effect. If one falls, communism everywhere. It's like a bad cold. Didn't end up happening. Unfortunately, spent a lot of money, killed a lot of people.
Killed a lot of people unnecessarily. Yeah. As we often do.
A lot of proxy wars where we weren't technically fighting, but we were
funding and aiding and abetting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. We weren't there.
They're still using guns though on American soldiers 20 years later. The guns that we gave them to fight communism. Yeah, exactly. Now they're fighting us. Funny how that happens.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But man, someone made a good dollar off that.
Oh, there's about 8 guys that are super rich right now because of it. But about millions of Afghanistan, though, people that are dead or without homes.
Yeah,
but
which is the tragedy of all of it.
The 8 oil tycoons are doing better than ever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they're living their best life.
Yeah. Oh, they are.
On top of the graves of millions of individuals.
But we literally just got into it more than the movie actually gets into it.
It is, yeah. Literally just that little snippet is more than you'll find.
Yeah. But it's cool because it intertwines like clips of the news and everything going on with the animation. It was really nice. But his dad was one of many people that were taken away when this government turned to communist because he was, of course, a danger. Yeah. That's the first thing when your government changes. You got to round up all the people that you think might just have a problem with this new government.
Well, and it was pretty sad too because I believe the numbers for that was anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 people that they rounded up.
Yeah, that just disappeared.
Never found.
I mean, they didn't disappear, but
we know what happened. Yeah. It's like the mafia. Oh, he disappeared in the desert. We know what happened.
Yeah, they're not out living in Florida somewhere. Right. They got rid of him, and yeah, it's crazy just the way that whole scene plays out, though. The animation, everything of them coming in and grabbing his dad, and his dad knowing that it was coming and being like...
Giving him his watch, too.
Yeah.
Ahmed, giving him the watch that he
The watch that's later stolen from him by the Ruskies. Yeah. Unfortunately, they went communism to communism on their leaps, which was a big...
You got to do what you got to do what you got to do though, and unfortunately, but I did love that though. Like I loved Amid in telling his story before all of this took place because, he was happy. He had a really good relationship with his parents, his family, his sisters.
Well, the crazy thing is, Dad was taken, and they still lived years after that.
Just wondering what happened to him.
Yeah, but being like, all right, that's just Dad's gone. Now we got to deal with that. Most people would hold just some crazy resentment and, want to get out of there. But I guess that was just a way of life. So, but yeah, eventually they have to leave, though, because things aren't good right now. Another government's coming in. So they have to eventually leave. No dad, but they have an older brother who lives in Sweden.
Yep.
But can get them to Moscow. So go from...
But they're paying traffickers who... This isn't high-end traffickers. This is like
well,
bottom of the barrel.
not when they're in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, they leave during the revolt. Mm-hmm. So they get out. They're literally, and it shows footage of it too. It's crazy. They are on the plane as people are fighting on the ground, as things are exploding and fire. They're getting out on the last plane that you can get out before things shut down. And they said
they got out
and they round up
time.
Another 1,000 people. Yeah.
And it's sad too, like to see that from the 70s and 80s and the correlation of what just happened in Afghanistan with that kid. He's 17 holding on to the plane and falls off the plane. You're like, how can we please fucking advance from this? It's been 50 years, you know? And like shit like this is still happening.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But yeah, it's crazy. Ahmed, he talks about he was crying the entire time. He's very young. He's like 7 or 8 when this is happening. So to 7 or 8 year old, there's no way you know what's going on or whatever. But they get out on the last plane. A lot of the way they get out on things is like they get so fucking lucky and somehow unlucky at the same time. Yeah. You know, they got out on the last plane, but where they were going was equally as oppressed. I mean, Moscow, and in Moscow.
When it was right after the fall of the USSR, so the police are completely corrupt.
Oh, there's no real government right now.
No, and it was basically, where are your papers? Oh, you don't have your papers, give me your money.
Yeah, just a shakedown.
And unfortunately, like you start to realize later on, as we get a little bit more developed in the story, a McDonald's comes to Russia, right?
And that is so funny because I've seen that video a million times of that first opening of that McDonald's. Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's so much there to that McDonald's. I mean, for fucking the fall of their government and McDonald's immediately to be like, hey, we can finally get a McDonald's in Moscow. Let's fucking do it.
Let's give it our best shot.
And I remember
$40.
That video, because they show the video a little bit of like the TV news talking about it, and people were waiting in line for hours, and pretty much everyone said it wasn't that good, overpriced. It's McDonald's.
Yeah, of course.
But it was really expensive too at the time because everything.
Well, it's really expensive in certain countries. I know Venezuela. It's like no one's in a Burger King because the prices no one can afford them.
Well, everything back then in Moscow and Russia was very expensive because their economy was in the shitter, and a loaf of bread was big fucking money. So for a McDonald's to come in, you had to be an oligarch,
an elite. Yeah, exactly.
But that's a crazy scene. But that scene is even fucking crazier. It may be the craziest scene of the movie is when the police shake him down, throw him in the bus. There's a girl in the bus, and eventually someone comes and the police let Ahmed and his brother, because they escaped from Afghanistan. Ahmed, his brother, his 2 sisters, and his mom. They all escape. But they get shaken down. Eventually, they get so fed up of being stuck inside, they go out to this McDonald's, and they get thrown into a police van. They let them go, but they make this girl stay. And it alludes, obviously, that the girl was raped by
multiple cops as payment for being
It's detained. Wild. It's wild to see in animation form. It'd be wild to see in fucking practical, too. But it is the toughest scene to fucking watch.
It was a heavy moment in that film too, because like Ahmed, you hear it and it's obviously him in animation, but you can hear the sorrow in his voice, and he goes, "It was one of the most horrible feelings I've ever had in my life."
Because he's talking to a documentary about the story, and because it flashes back and forth through times, present time through then, and he's talking to I think a Danish documentary, but it's the first time he's ever told this story.
Yeah.
Forever, he's told everyone he's ever known that his entire family died in Afghanistan. So he's going back and forth, but even when he's in present time, it's still in animation form or whatever. But yeah, like you said, you can hear the voice because he's talking about how he wished he had done something. But of course, what could you have done?
When he says too, that's one of the only people that he still remembers, like what she looks like with the dark black eyes that she had. And
as that door slams, the last time you probably ever.
He said, "I just felt terrible that he didn't do anything," and then he was saying it like, "Why didn't I do anything?"
Yeah, it is. Like, it's a tough fucking scene.
Yeah, because like, it is a horrible thing, but at the same time, like I do sympathize with him because what can you do? You're a refugee. if you were to try to beat up the cop, I mean, they would kill him. It's a terrible spot. Yeah. Like, obviously, the cops are the ones to fucking blame here.
It's a country where, I mean, at the time for sure, where no one gave a fuck about refugees either. You know, this country is falling apart and barely holding on to itself, its own identity, let alone they care about what's going on.
When they look down on refugees because, you know, their country's already fallen apart.
Even though they're the refugees because of Russia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but they don't give a fuck after they're gone. I mean, they don't care what happened. Like any country doesn't care, but that's a tough scene, and this is a movie chock full of tough fucking scenes.
It is.
My God, scenes that, again, the pressure's not at all alleviated being that it's animated. Not at all. I mean, maybe even adds more to it.
Well, and then literally right after that scene, they jump into the scene where it's just, at this point, the sisters have safely and successfully
let's talk about the sisters leaving.
Yes.
Because it's maybe the most horrifying travel story you'll ever fucking hear, dude. It is so goddamn bad. It just blows my mind that people have to go to these lengths to
escape.
Oh my God, it's fucking crazy. Basically, they load them onto a shipping container. Shipping container drives for a long time, and then they load them. Basically,
on a giant cargo ship.
And how he describes the coyotes, the people, the human traffickers, he says they're like psychopaths. They're like cold-blooded fucking serial killers.
If you're a human trafficker, you are.
And you always hear stories about them opening up shipping containers in real life and just 80 people dead inside. Yeah. You know, died of oxygen, no air or anything like that. But they cram, I don't even know, like 100 people into a shipping container. And they put it on a ship. The ship that, it's 2 weeks or something out
It's
to sea?
2 weeks, yeah. And terrible conditions, and the sea is just bouncing the whole time.
No one knows there's people in these containers.
Yeah.
They obviously think there's no people because they load them in a way where you can't get out. They stock these super tight. You can't get out, or barely any air or anything. People shitting, pissing, throwing up in there.
2 weeks.
And his sisters come out of this, and they are like catatonic.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk.
They won't do anything, man. And it's
I mean,
tragic.
that's hell.
Yeah.
If you imagine hell, like going to hell, that's it. People, who knows what was going on in there for 2 fucking weeks, dude.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you could have a few older people who have died, so now you have bodies in there for a week. There's
children in there. So the youngest was 6 months.
Oh my God, man.
I mean, yeah, you lock someone up for a few days, they turn into fucking animals. So people, I mean, they could have been killing each other. Yep. They could have, I mean, it would have been just, but they survived it.
And in the dark for 2 straight weeks, too. I mean, think about it. There's no light coming in or anything.
Oh, yeah.
So you're
it's psychological torture.
Yeah,
yeah. And not that, you're crammed in there like cattle. You're shoulder to shoulder with these people.
And then, yeah, just imagine, like, that's what's so crazy. And you talk about that, the lengths that people go to. And it's so tragic because, like, yeah, I mean, you're essentially rounded up like cattle. You're put in this thing. You can barely move. There's no move to even sleep. You have to sleep sitting up. And then, like, you shit, piss. And it's like, where?
And then you come out of it, and it takes probably years until you can even talk about it.
Yeah.
To eat. I mean, it's wild.
The sister scene was wild because, like, the older brother calls back
and
home.
he's like, yeah, the way he's talking about it, he's like, it's not good.
Yeah,
he's like, they might as well have died.
He said they almost died.
Yo, exactly. But I mean, yeah. But that's just the choice that they're given. It's either die or risk your life to go and make it better. But man, the journey's gonna suck.
Yeah, and it did for them.
It did for everyone.
Well, and
there's not a good way to get until the last guy.
Yes,
that guy was good.
Well, and that's why, and I'm glad we talked about that first, because that's why this time around they said they went with a very expensive trafficker who knew what they were doing.
He put him on a plane.
Is
that it?
I gotta say, still a piece of shit because he's a human trafficker. But
also,
at least he sent
didn't even get him to the right place.
No,
both of them.
Denmark, Sweden. I don't know the difference.
Denmark. One guy went to Switzerland.
Yeah, one guy went to Denmark. I'm like, okay.
He's like, look, I failed geography. Okay, I have no idea. I get you out of here. What do you want?
Told me somewhere.
I'm a trafficker. I don't know. I don't make maps. I'll get you in the area. He's like, you figure it out. But still, man, you'd much rather be in Denmark. you'd much rather be in Switzerland.
Yes.
Sweden's awesome.
Dealing with that.
All those three of those countries are great countries when it comes for like refugees and stuff. So, but because that's not the first trafficker they attempt. The boat one is the first one.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
this is the
right,
craziest fucking trip ever because they have to walk miles through the forest. Like it's winter in Russia.
Well, and they kind of show this too. They show just how cold-hearted these traffickers are because the old lady drops.
Well, you're seeing this and you can't believe it's real life.
Yeah. Or you just treat human beings like
You
that.
can't believe that there's people actually like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that are not written to be movie villains. But there's so many fucking people like that in real life, man. The world's scattered with them.
Yep.
But that guy, yeah. So they go, explain what they have to do or what happens with the old lady.
So basically, just like, they're walking through the forest. And this is a very old lady, and she collapses. And so they start to use a blanket. 4 people take a blanket and carry her because she can't. And then obviously, after walk for a few miles, these people get tired because and they drop her.
And at first, you're thinking, "Come on, bring this old lady." What are you thinking? They don't tell you at all how you're going to be traveling.
No.
When they try, and he even says, he's like, "I don't even believe they knew." They're just making the whole thing up on the way
As they go on
because
the
it's
fly.
and you believe it because they're like cutting through fences for the first time and stuff. You think if they knew, they would have like a direct path or whatever.
Of course, yeah, and like a route and stuff like that.
But it's completely it's so wild.
Whoa.
It's completely random. You have no idea. Either you could be taking a cushy ass plane, or you could be walking 18 miles through the Siberian forest.
Yeah.
With a madman.
An absolute psychopath because they dropped the lady. They just need a minute break, right? I mean, understandable. You're carrying a lady around for this long. And he walks up and he, basically is like, we're moving with or not. And then he goes, how about I just put a bullet in it and end it? End it right
well, he
here.
goes, yeah. And he even says something
Ahmed
about
said,
it's not that hard or whatever.
Yeah, and he says it's not that hard, which is so psychologically just fucked up.
Yeah.
And then Ahmed was like, and I am so glad that she didn't understand his language.
Well, he goes, because I think that was his son. He was told that too.
Yeah.
So the Russian guy was telling it to the old lady's son. I'll kill this guy. Actually, he's trying to get him to do it first. He wanted to give him the gun. Fucking wild. Somehow this lady she doesn't make it, unfortunately. They don't make it to Switzerland or Sweden or whatever.
And that's
who knows what happens to her.
Yeah, that's another thing, too. So they get on the ship. They're sitting in there for days, right? And they're under this cabinet because they just hollowed it out. And people are... And this is actually like where they start puking. And Amid's telling this whole story of how it was just absolutely miserable there.
Yeah.
And then the boat breaks down.
It's a 2-day journey through the Baltic Sea, and it's a tiny boat.
Tiny boat.
It's
They got like 50,
not like
60
it's not a
people down
boat
there?
you want to go to the Baltic Sea. I haven't heard great things about the Baltic Sea,
No.
but pretty choppy is what I hear.
I'd say the water's pretty choppy.
Yeah. But yeah, who knows? And they said they're only going for like 4 hours, and the boat breaks down. This boat was going to go for 2 days.
Didn't make it that long.
It breaks down, and I think maybe the most powerful fucking scene was the scene when the cruise. That was like, of all the things that happened, that may be the most gut-wrenching to me.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, it's just like this night and day look of like how some people live versus how other people live.
You
And
think
like,
about that, like just vacationing.
Yeah,
people
it
having
makes
the
you feel
best
bad to
lives ever.
exist.
Yeah, because and then
Like,
you
how
look
can
down,
some people exist like this? Would some people exist like that?
and the existence and everything, and just being like, wow, those people are like
Yeah.
fleeing
And
for their lives
people
in
coming
miserable
out and just taking
conditions.
pictures of them like they're fucking in the zoo or something.
And then like 5 minutes later, they're like, all right, back on the cruise ship.
all right, buffet's on. We gotta go, guys.
yeah.
We gotta go.
Noon.
Yeah, magic show starts in 20 minutes. Let's wrap
it up.
And the magic shows on a cruise ship are always all the shows on a cruise ship are shitty. So whatever they were doing
Was not that great.
No, but that was, I mean, it's just a perfect snapshot, just like the world. It's crazy, but like to where they were thinking they were like saviors, like these people will let us on or whatever.
And then they intercom, the police are coming. Stay where you
You'll
are.
be towed to Estonia.
Yeah.
Again, not a great country.
No. I could imagine not.
But that was tough, man. Especially when Ahmed was like, he wasn't even cheering. because he's like, this is the most embarrassed I've ever. He's like, this is so fucking.
And that was
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
too. Is when he was like, "This is so embarrassing," and I'm like, man, for him to have to feel that way,
Yeah.
for trying to flee, like,
well, for him to
situation.
basically say, I'd rather have died on the boat than to be in
Deal
a
with that
situation where people are
humiliation.
just taking pictures of me and
Yeah.
like I'm an animal. And then to make it all that way and then be like, just to tow back and to be in a worse situation, they put him in worse apartments.
Yep.
Then after years, they spend years in Estonia. They go, you can either stay here and just rot and die. Yeah. They're living in the shittiest apartment.
And they showed actual footage for that too.
Yeah, because the news came.
Yeah. And that was gut wrenching too, and the whole thing, because you think these people are showing up to like tell the world, hey, these people are in trouble, let's help them. No. Instead, it was just like a little
4
piece.
o'clock.
Yeah,
just a buffer in
hey,
between.
by the way,
sports.
we got refugees here. They're living miserable. All right, now back to you, Fred. How's the sports going?
It's absolutely what we do too. Mm-hmm. I mean, we do that all the every time you turn the news on, you get a 3-minute clip of the border and like some crazy shit going on, and being like, well, we got to move on from that.
Yeah, well, back to the Portland Trailblazers.
Or really, we should be like, maybe we should be talking about that a little
maybe
more.
we should fix the problem. Yeah.
But just absolutely insane. And that's the whole crazy thing, and how this movie works so well is because they were intertwined with all these crazy kind of events happening with like the McDonald's and the news agency, and like even being on the last plane, possibly the last plane of actual footage of them taking off. Like, they were intertwined through all these crazy, almost like Forrest Gumping it.
In a sense,
all these crazy, and that's why this movie is so good and so powerful. Is because like all the events that you know about, that you've read about, a ton of are happening, but it's like now it's a much more personal story because you're following this family go through these events. But it's wild. Yeah, they show them in Estonia, the actual apartment. It's a shithole and a half.
Awful living conditions.
Yeah, it's communist quarters for sure. I mean, it's the plain and simple. Yeah, it's very.
But to go back to the second time that he gets trafficked, and this was sad too, because his mother obviously became severely ill. She was dealing with a
probably
sickness.
Mentally ill at some point. Absolutely. I mean, she was gone through. We didn't talk about. She had the biggest fear. Her one fear in the world was drowning. And she had to be crammed in that fucking boat.
When remember, a man was talking about like
it did permanent damage to her.
Yeah, I had to choose who I thought I would have to save, and he goes, "Well, do you know how to swim?" And he goes,
"Because I didn't even think about it."
I didn't even think about it.
Such crazy thing. I know.
That's heavy, man.
Yeah,
that's heavy. Like where you're put in that spot.
But the whole Estonia trip did lasting damage on his mom. Mm-hmm. She was never the same after that. They said.
I was pretty devastated too when they save all this money and they say we're going to do it right this time. This trafficker is super expensive, and it was him and his older brother. And there was something that Ahmed said where he said, I felt so incredibly guilty because they were sending me, and I know that my brother, every day that he's here, he
lost his chance.
Yeah, his chance of a good life is diminishing. And it's like, whew.
Yeah. And the whole time Ahmed is 15. I mean,
that's crazy.
Yeah, this is
taking over finances and everything.
You
grow up fast.
Well, not even that, but every single family member was going through, like the brother. They said the brother dated his girlfriend for 10 years, and she eventually left him because he would never marry her because he spent all of his money trying to get his family out of Russia. And he would never take the chance of marrying her because he couldn't.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy that it did so much damage to all of them. And even Ahmed, in the present time, he can't settle down anywhere. He doesn't want to... He doesn't want to live in a house on a farm or in land or anything. He's scared he's going to get depressed by being there. So it did permanent damage to every single person.
And we'll talk about maybe the only highlight, the only like good feeling thing about this whole film is Ahmed, he makes the journey. Obviously, he meets that boy along the way, or man, whatever. I don't know how old they were at the time, but whatever.
Yeah, he wasn't much older than
man, boy, whatever. And he said he kind of had a crush on him, and you kind of see
he gave him the gold necklace. That was nice.
That was a really good moment. But then when he gets there, his older brother is pestering him. When are you gonna find a girl? When are you gonna find a girl?
Well, he goes to Denmark, lives in Denmark for years because this new guy, the trafficker, says if they find out you have family and you got here illegally, they'll send you back.
Send you back.
No matter what, you have to tell every single person that every single family died in Afghanistan and that you got here on your own, or they're going to fucking send you back. So he's never told anyone that he has any family for years. And he calls his brother like the first couple days, and his brother says, just
stick to the story.
And that's it.
Yep.
So for years, so he's battling being gay this entire time, on top of having to
go through this
really
incredibly
be a crazy refugee. The entire time he's battling being gay. He
experience.
does not know how his family's going to react. And he's so scared because the family obviously is the only thing he has.
Yeah.
So he's so fucking scared.
And you have to think about this too, 70s, 80s, obviously more traditional households at that time.
Yeah,
it wasn't as
probably around the
prevalent
90s about
or
this time,
accepted as it is now.
You have no idea what's going to happen. Absolutely. But he finally meets his brother in Sweden. Mm-hmm. Finally, and after years of not seeing him or whatever.
Years, maybe even up to this point, a decade.
Oh, and what I was going to get, in Denmark, he asked for medication to help
him.
Because he's so scared that if he tells his family that they're not going to want anything, then he's got absolutely nothing left. Yeah. So what happens? He goes to his brother in Sweden.
And finally, like after, and I like the montage, of his brother constantly pestering him. Just being like, hey, when are you going to get a girl? When are you going to get a girlfriend? Which, that's something like if I didn't know, like I would probably do at some point. And it was in the kitchen and Amit says, he goes, it was one of the scariest I've ever been in my life. And he turns and he says, I'm not into women in that way. And the sisters, it's like straight out of like an actual film where it's like the dishes drop. Yeah. Everyone's just quiet. Everyone's looking. And like instantly.
His sister goes, are you sure? Like, are you 100% sure?
And you could tell the brother.
And I was watching this by myself, but the air was sucked out of the room.
I was watching it by myself too, and that was like a moment where I was like, "Oh boy, are we gonna get more?
Are they gonna send them back to Afghanistan? Yeah. Like, what is gonna happen here?"
Yeah,
I'm like, and his family stuck with each other no matter what for so long.
And his brother just goes, "Follow me, get in my car." And I'm thinking,
and man goes, "Where are we going?" He goes, "Just get
in my car." And like, I was so scared at that point because I was just like, what other trauma did he have to suffer with his brother? What is his brother going to do?
Like, is this not the end of the story?
Yeah.
I thought after all this, 7 or 8 years, maybe even a decade, he has spent trying. They have not been together for so long, and they're finally all together. Is this one little thing just going to ruin everything? Is he just going to send him on the next plane back to Denmark or wherever?
Well, initially, when he handed him the cash at first, I was thinking, oh my God, he's like being like, leave.
I thought he was going to be like buying him a hooker, a woman. Like, you're going to turn to a man. I'm like, this is getting even worse. I'm like, this is the worst thing. It's gay conversion therapy. Yeah. Thank God.
And it was the best moment. I was so nervous. It was the best moment of the film, too, because he gives him the money, and then he goes, basically have fun. Yeah. And he walks in. He's all nervous and timid, doesn't really know.
He has no idea what this building is.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go in there. And he walks in, and it's like a gay club.
Oh, yeah.
And boy, was it a gay club.
It was lit.
It was lit, dude. I'm not going to lie. Gay people know how to party.
It was so, and of course it's Sweden, they've, even back then, they've been pretty progressive with all that stuff. So it's a good, and it was so, just like the biggest relief ever. Like, I just sank back. I'm like, oh, thank God.
Thank God.
And he even talks about how just so unbelievable, and how his brother and they all knew immediately, and that the whole reason they were shocked is because they've all clearly had all talked about it before. Clearly, they didn't care at all.
No,
they just wanted him to be happy.
Completely different take than I thought it was going to happen.
And he even talks about it. He's like, normally I would have left immediately. He's like, but I stayed. He's like, because that's probably the first night he's ever had in the last 20 years that he's ever had to not have to worry at all.
Yeah,
not have to worry about hiding a secret or surviving on a boat or a train or something.
It was kind of funny, though, because he goes, and I didn't leave that
whole
night.
I did it. He's like,
I didn't go home till the next morning.
Because you got his character for sure was always kind of the nervous, kind of
timid type.
Exactly. Yep. And you get the point that he probably would have been really out of place there. But it was a high note for sure.
Absolutely.
It was awesome. And man, did he party? He probably did some fucking Molly.
Oh, yeah. Did Molly. Did some blow. Was grinding up on some dudes. He had a good time. He let it loose. Probably did the helicopter once.
Oh, there should have been a 20-minute post-credit scene of him.
Just shirt off, all sweaty and oily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because no one knowing what he's gone through at all and just not even fucking caring, just going. And you're in Sweden now, baby. Every night
you come back here, but eventually brother's gonna have to get you a job because you gotta pay for it.
Not cheap.
You can't pay for it every night.
Oh, MDMA is so incredibly expensive.
It really is.
Being a club kid is not cheap. You got it.
Yeah, that's your trust fund kid.
Yeah, exactly. Which most of those kids are. We know, of course.
We know.
But man, I was so glad it ended on a good note too. I was so worried that because it's a documentary. Mm-hmm. Documentaries don't always end on a good note.
They absolutely do not.
They're not stories, so of course. And it definitely couldn't have ended. It could have ended on a very somber note of him just staying in Denmark or whatever, and not being. But it ended on the highest note with like him finally being able to accept who he is and being able to accept, living and staying in one place at one time. And because the whole time he was like, he had a really nice boyfriend, but he was like driving him away because he couldn't stay with him forever.
And he couldn't tell him either or anything.
Yeah. Another thing, no one knew about this.
Imagine being, life partners, like husband and husband, and then not even know. Well, at the time they were engaged, so they weren't married yet.
Imagine the damage that was done. I mean, so severely when, even though he clearly got to a point where he could tell this story, that he was still so scared
of being sent back.
After all this time, he's in like his 30s. After all this time, still, knowing they're not going to send him back at this point. But just being so fucking scared of going. You have to go through so much to have that kind of fear.
Yeah.
And to never fucking... He did tell one person, and the guy held it over his head.
His ex-boyfriend, yeah.
That's why the whole time I'm thinking, this is not going to end good. Because he can't dodge a fucking bullet. But...
One of my favorite shots, and it's just so simplistic, but there was something, and it wrapped up the film, and I don't know, there was something beautiful about it, is him and his husband, or at the time fiance, were standing there, and they were overlooking this not garden, but this landscape, right? And then they go, oh, there's raspberries down there, and you see the cartoons walk down, and then they go to the real image, and it's like almost verbatim what the animation was, and it's just the overlay of like the bushes and then the river and stuff, and I was like, wow, that was nice. It just, there was a sense of calm and peace.
Well, what I'm guessing is they at least really did shoot something. Mm-hmm. All on camera or whatever, and then animated it after, or they at least, they obviously did the sound, they weren't in a voice studio or anything, so they at least did the sound, but I like that too, where it's like, they're just a random conversation about the rose or raspberry bushes. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, and then it does the shot, because clearly, it was all, none of it was fiction. No. But it being animated was a trip, but it was...
Yeah, the animation.
The animation was amazing.
Yeah, technical aspects were awesome as well. I really enjoyed that kind of animation.
Even the idea to be like, this film is so fucking heavy, let's animate this. Yeah. It's a wild.
Oddly enough, it really worked.
It worked out.
It was more
so
impactful.
well.
I think it was way more impactful than to do a reimagining or reenacting, I should say, and having like different people play.
The world is ready for adult animation.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay? We're getting closer and closer, but no one has really taken the chance on any adult animation major feature. Mm-hmm. But I think we're ready for it, man. Yeah. You do so much with animation that I'm down.
I will always be a bigger fan of 2D instead of 3D animation. I just love it so much more. And that's what this
hand-drawn is beautiful. Yeah,
it is.
But of course, we did grow up in the Disney Renaissance
era. Yeah, so we may be
biased. I'm sure maybe a Gen Zer will tell you that computer animation.
Yeah, I love the holographic or whatever, the 3D friggin' Winnie
which they can, and nowadays they can do computer animation so beautiful. Yeah, it looks so good. Yeah.
But I still love 2D.
2D, there's a certain warmth of 2D animation that I like a lot. Yeah. But it's powerful stuff, man.
It is. This is a really great film.
I think it's gonna take home at least one Oscar.
Yeah, and this is one like. I was joking around that you can't watch it with your kids, but you could, but it's all in subtitles anyway, so like your kids aren't going to read it. But
you would need like an older, maybe a 12 to 13-year-old to really understand. But I'm telling you, man, this would be a great film to show like in schools, like you do a subject on Afghanistan and communism or whatever, and then show this after like you're done with all that and be like, okay, here's a personal story. Because in history, you never learn about individual families or anything, so... I think it'd be perfect.
It would be. It really would be. And this is one I encourage everyone to go and see.
Yeah, definitely. Free on Hulu. Or
Yeah,
you can
free
pay,
on Hulu.
or you can
or
pay.
you can pay $5.99 like me, and I went to Prime Video just thinking, oh, it's on Prime Video to rent, and I just clicked rent like a schmuck.
Schmuck and a half.
But
I
hey,
swear to
whatever.
God.
You know what?
It is what
$5.99
it
well
is.
spent. I will say, I'm actually happy that I sent that money over.
Fortunately, it's not going to the studio. It's going to Amazon.
Yeah, I know. I do know that, but hopefully, Ahmed gets a little cut of that or something.
He won't.
Do we have like a GoFundMe or a
Nothing
Give Send
on-
Go
I hope
for him?
so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
let's raise some money for him.
All
Let's
right.
make sure he has a good life. Alrighty, well, that is our review for Flea. If you guys like what you've seen here, please be sure to smash that like button, comment below, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification as we drop videos here every single day. Thank you so much for watching and listening. My name is Mason Knight. That is Cash Krause, and until next time.
Bye.